Welcome back. Feel free to go ahead with your lunch and beverages while we introduce our next speaker. And I'm very pleased. This symposium just keeps getting better and better. And we now are happy to introduce Professor David Frock from Western State University School of Law. He's an associate professor of law and director of the Criminal Law Practice Center, Western State University College of Law, and he's also a major in the United States Air Force Judge Advocate General's Corps Reserve. He was voluntarily recalled to active duty in April of 2008 to serve as a military defense counsel with the Office of Military Commissions. In that capacity, he represents detainees at Guantanamo Bay who face trial by military commissions. He's also the acting senior individual mobilization augmentee and reserve coordinator at the Office of Staff Judge Advocate, Air Force Flight Test Center, Edwards Air Force Base, California. He has some wonderfully interesting stories to discuss with you over the noon hour about his experiences representing detainees at Guantanamo. And please help me welcome Professor David Frock.
And thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this august forum, and it's a great honor to be here among such legal luminaries. And I did prepare a speech about the difficulties of defending detainees, and I'm submitting that an article based on that speech to the symposium edition of the Washburn Law Journal, and I want to thank the students from the Law Journal who have worked so hard to put this together and been such wonderful hosts. However, in listening to some of the speakers over the last day and a half, I decided, much as the Bush administration jettisoned the rule of law, to jettison my speech and to substitute something else. So I will try to leave time for questions and answers, because I know many people are curious about what it's really like to defend a detainee at a military commission. And of course, I have been doing that for the last 6 months. The trial that was just held of Ali Hamza al-Balul, who was convicted last Monday and sentenced to life, was my client, and that was only the second military commission trial. But I've devoted most of my energy to the defense of Mohammed Jawad, primarily because Mr. al-Balul never accepted my representation, and so although I was prepared to represent him and defend him, he did not authorize me to do that. And I thought I would give you a snapshot of how the JAG, Military Defense Council, are defending the detainees. And I've been very inspired by Professor Margulies' presentation about his defense, and there are many wonderful civilian attorneys who represent the detainees in habeas and DTA, Detainee Treatment Act litigation. And I thought I appreciated his efforts to humanize the detainees, and I thought I would continue with that theme. So the speech that I'm going to give instead, and anyone who want to read the other one that I wrote, I can be happy to email you a copy, and it'll be in the symposium edition of the journal. This is a closing argument that I gave on a motion to dismiss the charges against my client, Mohammed Jawad. Mohammed is one of two teenage detainees. Well, he's not a teenager anymore, but he was captured on December 17, 2002 in Kabul, Afghanistan, when he was 16 or 17 years old. And so he is now the age of many of the first-year law students that are watching this today, 22, maybe 23 years old. The crime that he's accused of is throwing a hand grenade into a passing jeep in a crowded public bazaar in Kabul the hand grenade injured 2 U.S. Special Forces Army soldiers and their interpreter, Afghan interpreter. Fortunately, no one was killed, and those soldiers later recovered, and one returned to active duty, and the other is a police officer in Long Beach, California. The interpreter was given a humanitarian visa to come to the United States and has been resettled in Virginia. Meanwhile, Mohammed Jawad has languished in Guantanamo for nearly 6 years. So to set the stage, this was a hearing that was on June 19th, 2008. The first appearance that I had was May 7th, was the arraignment of Mohammed Jawad, and I was given 3 weeks to file all legal motions on his behalf. You can imagine that there are many, many legal challenges that one might make in the military commissions, and I made as many as I possibly could in that time frame. And then the hearing was set for June 19th, 2008. I was solo counsel at the time. There were a number of motions that were litigated that day, one of which was unlawful influence of Brigadier General Thomas Hartman, the legal advisor, and he testified that day, and I cross-examined him. The former chief prosecutor, Colonel Morris Davis of the Air Force, testified as a defense witness. Mohammed Jawad himself testified, quite unexpectedly and unplanned, but I was trying to prove that he had been tortured. The torture consisted of something called the frequent flyer program, a sleep deprivation experiment that you heard about earlier today. And I had arranged for an expert from the Harvard Medical School, who was an expert on sleep deprivation, to testify about the effects, both physical and psychological effects of sleep deprivation. And during her testimony, my client, Mohammed, became very agitated, and he finally, it wasn't fortunate during my direct examination, but during the cross-examination by the prosecutor, he couldn't take it anymore, and he jumped up and he said, of course in Pashto, but it was translated by the interpreter, "Who is this doctor? She never examined me. I don't know what this doctor is saying. If you want to hear about the sleep deprivation, I'll tell you about the sleep deprivation." And he was very animated, and I tried to calm him down. And the only way ultimately that I was able to calm him down was to promise him that he could take the stand next and testify. Of course, I had not planned to do that. Putting your client on the stand for any purpose is fraught with peril, particularly when you haven't rehearsed in any way. And we really didn't have much of a relationship at that point. We were just getting to know each other. But he did take the stand and testified, and it was very moving, very poignant. And that was the first time that a Guantanamo detainee had testified on his own behalf about the torture that he had experienced before a military commission. The hearing lasted 14 hours. I had asked for 2 days and had been denied, so we just kept pressing on until into the night. And it ended with this argument.